All right, the former Seattle Times sports writer who resigned his position, his last day was Tuesday of this week because the paper spiked his column about a couple of student athletes opposed to competing against biological males. And he's got some advice now for his former employer. So I did speak with Matt Calkins last evening. It was a whirlwind day for him because after he put up a Substack piece about why he resigned that went out on Thursday, that thing blew up. It was reposted a couple hours later on X, and within 2 hours of that post, there were something like 2.2 million views of this. He was all over national media. He was on Fox News yesterday. Yahoo Sports picked it up. New York Post picked it up. I think even the Daily Mail picked it up. And I was fortunate enough to get him last evening for a few minutes an interview. So a little bit of the backstory if you're not familiar yet with it. So Matt Calkins worked for the Seattle Times for 11 years as a sports writer. He told me he said stories of his get spiked before by his editors, and that means an editor doesn't like your story or whatever, think the timing isn't right, or they take issue with the way you wrote it, whatever. Um, Sometimes, if you happen to work for an organization that has a particular political bent, and maybe your article doesn't go along with that, that might be one of the causes why some of Mr. Calkins' articles, in his opinion, didn't get published. So this started with him attending a rally that was outside Key Arena for a recent WNBA game. This was the Seattle Storm game and the Indiana Fever. And that was the game that there was a rally before the game with some folks there that are speaking out in support of protecting girls' sports and speaking out in support of Sophie Cunningham. And she was playing with the Indiana Fever. So they were there holding up signs in support of Sophie. And you probably saw that also went hugely viral because one of the girls who was there, Annalie Wilson, who is a student in Wenatchee, lost a track meet when she was in eighth grade to a state track meet to a boy in eighth grade, biological male competitor. And she was the first really in our state to start to speak out about the unfairness, in her opinion, of having to compete against a biological male. So she was at the game. Annalie Wilson was at that game, as were some others. And that's when Storm co owner Celeste Keaton confronted and allegedly cussed Annalie and another girl out over their signs that were supporting Sophie Cunningham. And that ended up leading to Keaton getting suspended for 5 home games. So that was a big national story couple of weeks ago, or a few weeks ago now. So the plan then for Matt Calkins, as he attended the rally and interviewed Annalie Wilson, and then followed up after to interview Frances Stout, who we've also featured quite a bit here on our program because she's the Tumwater High School basketball player who sat out a game against, when she found out an 18-year-old man on the other team was going to be, her competitor. And she ended up getting investigated by her own school district and the WIAA over her, basically publicly saying, "I'm not playing against a man." They accused her of, harassment, intimidation, bullying, whatever it was. Anyway, she ended up being cleared of all that. But he interviewed the two girls. He was excited to put up the article, and I'll let him tell you the story from there.
I sent this to my editor on Friday, July 31st, and said, "Hey, I wrote this. This is 10:30 in the morning when I sent it. No rush to run it. This doesn't have to be in Sunday's paper or anything." And he was like, "Okay, we're gonna look at it." Then a couple hours later, he said, "It's not going to be ready for Sunday, but we're still looking at it." I'm like, "Okay, I'll come up with another Sunday idea." Then on Monday night, I got an email saying, "Hey, my boss," or he was saying that his boss is going to take it to the top 2 editors on Wednesday. So now it's already 5 days past, and I'm going, this is like becoming an event, right? Not a good sign for it getting in. Then on Thursday, I got a call from my editor who's saying, "Well, you didn't tell us what you were doing beforehand, so we're not going to publish this," which I didn't buy it. You wouldn't run it up the chain of command over 5 days if you just would have killed it on the spot if that were the reason. I don't think that would have been a good reason anyway, but I think they just frankly were afraid of the smoke. I'll tell you this, I was very confident, and today has confirmed that that the even in super liberal Seattle, that the response would have been overwhelmingly positive, because this is just something that a lot of people don't want to talk about. But when someone comes out there and has what I think you and I will say a common sense stance on it, there's a starvation for that. I think in for readers, for consumers of mainstream media, because we don't give them those columns, and part of me just wanted to give the average Joe that column that they've been waiting to read.
So that was the final straw for him when, several days later he finds out the story's spiked. He gave his notice right there and then. That was on August the 6th. And then he worked 2 full weeks and had his last day on the 18th this past Tuesday. And then yesterday he goes public with that Substack article about the resignation. And of course, that blew up crazy viral. So he's got more interview requests today too. I just saw a thing on TV that he'll be on national media at a couple different stations again tonight. So busy guy. But job offers apparently already coming in from Mr. Calkins, who left his job at the Seattle Times. But he told me he has some advice for his former employer.
My advice is that there is, I think, a disconnect between people in the newsroom and the general public, or at least the loudest voices in the newsroom, and that there is, I don't know if that's starvation sounds a little hyperbolic, but I'll just say there's a starvation for common sense articles that we don't really run. People want to read those. And I think that they have kind of chosen the activist as their target audience over the average Joe. And I think a lot of the average readers have kind of been, put on the back burner, so that they can avoid getting the pushback from the loudest critics. And I think they should resist that. I think they should just be like, we're gonna take the pain, right? And just know that we're serving, the silent majority who agree with a lot of these topics. And just, there's a big emphasis on diversity, and you've probably heard this comparison before. There's a lot of emphasis on cosmetic diversity, but very little emphasis on thought diversity. And I feel like the Seattle Times should really focus on the second one. And I think they'd be a lot better off, and I think their readers would be a lot happier, even if it pisses off some people in the newsroom.
I did reach out to the Seattle Times executive editors for comments on this. Of course, I'm sure they're getting lots of requests. The only response I got back was from Senior Vice President of Product Marketing and Public Service at the Times, Katie Irwart, and she just simply said, "We have no comment on this. Thanks for reaching out." So, yeah, that's probably a good position at this point to take and not make this, back and forth at this point.